Hello everybody, Xander here, and today we're doing a little bit of a different movie review than usual because of course when I'm reviewing a movie or TV show I usually simply have a background that features a horizontal poster or some horizontal image of the film or show I'm reviewing and then do a voiceover that I edit together. This one's a little different, mostly because the movie that I'm talking about is much older than anything that I have reviewed, because everything's recent, but I might do some older, but still slightly younger reviews in the future. But for now, we are talking about Tim Burton's Batman from 1989, starring Michael Keaton as the title character. I saw this in the theater for Batman Day, which was yesterday. Of course, Batman Day is an official sort of celebration of the character, which I'm pretty sure does happen every September. I don't know if it's every 16th of September or it's like specific, holidays, like I think Memorial Day, where it happens on a specific day of the week and not a specific date. But I might be wrong, actually. But it's a special day for the most part, especially being a Batman fan. So, as I said, I went to go see Burton's Batman in the theater. Me and my brother went to see it, and we were like the only people there, which was kind of cool. Just me and him getting to experience it, especially because he hadn't really seen it at all, and I hadn't seen it in years. So it was just really, really a fun experience. But that's just the, setup for me watching this movie again for that, particular day. I wanted to do this review yesterday, but I got so busy that I couldn't. So I'm doing it now, and that's what counts. So it's a very simple, premise. Batman is needing to stop the Joker, played by Jack Nicholson, after he, is born from a, vat of chemicals that he falls into after a, sort of criminal job gone wrong that Batman intercepts, and his hair is dyed green and his skin is turned white from the chemicals, and now he has become, a psychotic killer clown, basically, who now has a criminal empire and is trying to, poison the people of Gotham and bring his own brand of chaos, basically. On top of that, a new Gotham reporter, Vicky Vale, basically gets roped into this whole thing when she's trying to get pictures of Batman, and at the same time Joker becomes obsessed with her, tries to capture her or whatever. And of course, like I said, Batman needs to stop Joker. So it is a mostly pretty simple story compared to other Batman movies, because naturally they have to work harder to make a story more different, more necessary than the one before it. So this is a decently easy watch, even though it's like, I think, about the same length as, say, one of the Dark Knight trilogy films or some of the animated stuff. About 2 hours and 21 minutes, but still an easy enough watch. Of course, Tim Burton directed it, as I said, and his style comes through very well. The gothic vibes that everyone usually gets when they think of Batman comes through very well, and that's probably because Burton kind of cemented a style for Batman, because Batman had been a well-known character for years, obviously because of the comics where he came from, but also the Adam West TV show from 1966. But that was, of course, an era when Batman was more family friendly, more lighthearted and silly, basically. So, Burton's film is not the first to make Batman a more serious and grounded character. The comics had done that quite a while before, like a decade at least before, with many comics, and then that was like really brought home with the 80s, mid 80s, where we got Frank Miller's two different Batman comics, Year One and The Dark Knight Returns, and then in 1988 we got Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, which is a very well-known comic next to Year One and Dark Knight Returns, and supposedly inspired Tim Burton, but I don't know how true that is, especially because he's mentioned that he hasn't read comics, but supposedly Killing Joke was the first one he read, but I don't know, the only similarities are there's Batman and there's Joker. In terms of the actors, what else can I say? Pretty good stuff. Michael Keaton is a pretty good Batman. Like, the voice is really good. It's like the first, serious Batman voice. So, it's the, one that started it all, or one that would be preceded by many others. And it's pretty cool. It's always interesting looking back at pretty much almost every Batman, live action Batman, who has gained controversy over the casting. Michael Keaton was the first, as fans were outraged that he was cast as Batman because he was seen as a comedic actor after Beetlejuice, which was made by Tim Burton as well, and also Mr. Mom, which came out at some point around that time in the 80s. And then again, no different from Ben Affleck or Robert Pattinson. I'm not quite sure if Christian Bale got any controversy for his casting. I should do research on that, but I forget to, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that was just how it is, and pretty much like almost all of them, people were proven wrong, at least to some degree, because Michael Keaton does a pretty good job as Batman. He embodies the character pretty well for what this is, like the first serious big screen version of Batman. His Bruce Wayne is different but interesting because he plays it more like a very awkward weirdo, and Batman naturally would be an awkward weirdo, but this is like the first time it's really focused on, and it's also like the first and only time there's a Bruce Wayne that has curly hair that I don't think is stupid. Not that there's really any curly haired Bruce Waynes out there much, but Michael Keaton's pretty much the first and only to do it, and it's not really bad. It's a very 80s haircut, I'll say that. This is the 80s Batman, and that's the best thing I can say about this movie. One of the best things. Like, it's of its time. It's of its time, and it works on a lot of levels, but it also makes it a time capsule of the era, the end of the 80s. And that's, shown pretty well by, Prince being part of the soundtrack. Famous musician Prince, who did like at least a couple of songs for the movie. He might have done at least one or two more for the soundtrack, but not featured in the movie. Like, there's Party Man, and then there's, I think it's just called Trust, I don't remember. Both of them that show up when the Joker's around, which actually makes sense, seeing how the kind of tone and vibe fits with some Joker stuff, like when he's trashing the museum, the art museum, very famous scene, of course. And then, of course, the parade, another famous scene, where he's just throwing money to people. Really great. And Jack Nicholson's pretty fun as Joker. He is definitely the most comic accurate looking. Uh, he's not as slender as Joker usually is, but that's fine. The colors and the outfit and the colors are pretty spot on, I'd say. He does a really good balance of being funny as hell and terrifying at the same time. And I think, to an extent, Mark Hamill did this really well as well years later. But Nicholson at the time did that spectacularly. Because again, like with Adam West, the only Joker you had in live action was more goofy, but with Joker it works. He's a, clown, a weird, criminal clown, except instead of pranking people and doing some frankly small crimes, he's actually killing people and planning to kill more people. So there's definitely that. It's I'm trying to think. It's definitely one of the first PG-13 movies I probably saw. I would think, maybe, and it feels very much like the type of PG-13 movie you show a kid, almost, especially if they're into Batman. It's like, I don't know, kids just kind of like weird or creepy or violent stuff sometimes. I don't know why, but that was kind of me. Like, some of the really creepy or dark moments of the movie just stay in my head, but not in a traumatizing way. Some images that stick with me. Not always violent ones, like Joker's hand rising out of the chemical bath. Very striking. And then, of course, almost every image involving Batman, like him just standing there, is iconic. And the costume, of course, is great, just like with Joker. Then there's Vicky Vale, who I mentioned earlier, played by Kim Basinger. Decent character. There's obviously the problem everyone mentions every now and then, where she screams a lot, which is true, but it's definitely a scream that is well done. Obviously, it's a little easier to do when there's enough time in between certain scenes where you do need to scream, but still an impressive scream, even though it's frequent and borderline annoying. But oh well, it's better than Willie in Indiana Jones 2, another blonde character who screams a lot. But oh well. What else? It was interesting. I think the interesting part about watching it on the big screen was noticing even more of the somewhat dated but still just interesting to look at special effects. Whether it was uses of green screening or animation in itself, like actual animation, like when the Joker falls to his death, he's animated, or animated in some way, which is kind of obvious even when you watch it on a smaller screen now. But it's still fun to look at. It's still interesting. It's not bad. Like, some effects in a movie, especially an 80s movie, that seem very dated and almost you can't help but kind of laugh at or smile at least. Say, like, another villain fall in a movie, like the bad guy from RoboCop, who is falling to his death from a high building after RoboCop shoots him, and he then turns into stop motion, and his arms are very long, and he's flailing them around, and he falls to his death. It's goofy. But with Batman, the dated effects don't hurt the movie in any way, and I think that's because Burton knew what to do with those effects, even if they're low budget. In a sense, I'm pretty sure he loved doing that, because I think he was kind of into that low budget feel, even when he was making a studio film, a big studio film like Batman, or everything he basically worked on afterward, like Batman Returns, Nightmare Before oh wait, shit. He mostly worked on that, but basically almost someone else, but still his fingerprints. Um, Mars Attacks, even though that wasn't good. Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, and a few others. He just had that vibe. Oh, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which came out before Batman, he also did that, and then Beetlejuice. So those two other movies also showed you that style of his, and it's unique. At least, older Burton. He made some decent movies. Sweeney Todd was probably one of his best later movies. Alice in Wonderland was not good, but I had memories. I still have memories of it, and I appreciate those memories at least. That was like the same kind of thing where it was like a very kind of an eerie movie at times, but it stuck with me in a good way, less traumatic, but interesting. Not a good movie, but still. And despite the tangent, overall, Batman is a good movie. And even though Burton and Keaton's together, their Batman and Bruce Wayne aren't always the most accurate. At least in terms of Bruce Wayne's behavior. But I think it's unique enough to where it still works. Him killing, it's like, it's better than it is in Batman Returns, I'll say that, where he literally roasts a man alive with the exhaust flame of the Batmobile, and then later on straps a bomb to a guy, smiles, and then punches him to a shaft of some kind, like a maintenance shaft of some kind, and he blows up. That just doesn't work. But here it's just like, it's less over the top and sadistic. He kills the Joker basically, but oh well. And on top of that, they've also made the change of Joker being the one who kills Batman's parents, which mainly works for this standalone film. If you treat Batman, or Burton's Batman, almost as a standalone kind of movie, which is obviously how it would have been treated at the time, and even Burton himself treating it like just a little thing that he did, and that was it. But yes, I usually prefer Batman having a no-kill rule and a no-gun rule, and that's what I appreciate about later versions, including the latest with Pattinson with the Batman, where he explicitly has a no-guns rule and no-killing rule, and kind of, at least with the killing, explains it, like the line you cross. But it's fine here. I'm focused more on like the visuals, the style, and just the pure magic of the film. So again, it was really cool seeing it in the theater for the first time ever. No one else there, just me and my brother having a fun time. And I want to do something like that again, because I'm praying that in December this year they put the Mask of the Phantasm in theaters for its 30th anniversary, because that to me is the best Batman movie ever. Even though it's animated, still the best. It's got Kevin Conroy, rest his soul, and Mark Hamill, Dana Delaney, and a few other great actors. It's a fantastic movie. I think you should go watch it, unless it does end up being in theaters again and it's available where you are. then I'd suggest you go see it, because I will if I have the opportunity. And I guess I'll do a similar video to this when it happens and I go see it. Until then, I hope you found this little retro review pleasing enough. I guess I'll give a rating. Why not? I don't know if there's any other things to say other than Commissioner Gordon's a little weird in this version. He's more like a dumpy old man. Very much like a commissioner, because he's like spent years to get his position, I guess, but not my favorite Gordon at all. He gets worse as the films go on, at least with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, where not only, of course, Burton never worked on those, especially Batman and Robin, but Gordon gets progressively goofier to the point where he really is like a cartoon character and not the respected lieutenant or commissioner that he should be. But it's a little nitpick, a little tangent. For now, let's get to the rating. I'm gonna give Tim Burton's Batman from 1989 shit, I guess I'm using my hands now. Hang on a second. A 9 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this little kind of unique retro review of Batman 89. This is unscripted, or at least more unscripted than a lot of my reviews, so I hope you didn't mind it. I might do similar style for some retro kind of reviews where I don't need to really have the almost professionalism or not really polished, just straightforwardness that I do with a lot of my reviews for movies and shows that are new. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. Check out some of my other stuff, my other reviews. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, and happy late, at least, Batman Day.